This is Savage Insomniac Radio reporting from the kitchen. So I'm going to report from wherever I have to. I had a day. I really did. And I've had a couple of days. And they haven't been the best.
Unfortunately.
Yep. There's Sarah, unfortunately. I am fighting my butt off to try to be the person that doesn't just sit back and not report stuff. And I am understanding why so many people do not report. I've always understood this, by the way. But I'm understanding more and more why people walk. You know, there's all this accusations leveraged against women. You know, and we've heard this over. I know we've also heard accusations leveraged against men. Trust me when I say the last few years, several years, we've heard some accusations. So I'm not trying to say we haven't. But at the time that we're hearing those accusations against men, we're hearing a similar set of accusations against women. And those accusations are, why didn't women go at the time and report some person that did something wrong? That's what I'm hearing. Why didn't some woman or kid, because they're usually 18, 19, 20, 21, they're young people. To me, those people are all kids. I was a kid when I was that age.
You're a kid when you're 18.
Yeah. And they're asking, why didn't they go up against some powerful figure?
And sometimes I still view myself as a kid, and I'm over 20.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just it. People that are in their 20s, you know, they're adults, but they're still kind of kids. And if you want to attack a kid for saying that, remember that when your kids go off, you know, like, a lot of times you're like, well, you're still a kid, you know, so I'm just saying, I think a lot of people, I know I've had a lot of people come to me in their 20s and go, I realized I was just a kid at some point. I'm not going to mention who did it. It's not important.
You did it.
I did it, but I know other people have done it that I am, I guess I'm important figures in their life, or I'm an important figure in their life. They've come to me. So I was sitting here in all this, because I've called now, I've had an issue with human research being abusive. It's private research by Meta, ironically called the Gratitude Study. There's a secondary study by Facebook I found to be annoying, disrespectful, but I don't think it really violated ethics. So just to show you, I am able to, I mean, it might have violated some ethics, but I didn't feel like it violated me personally in an abusive manner. It was more boring. And I had questions about what they were doing with the data that I was providing them. I think that's why I didn't provide it toward the end, why I just stopped. Anyway, anyone who's interested, just look up the Facebook files and then you'll know that I was probably right. You know, my daughter said all she could think about was the X-Files when I mentioned that. That's what we need. Well, so I've contacted the Office for Human Research, the IRB at OSU a couple of times. I've talked to a couple people on ethics, I think, at OSU, one of them being extremely rude. And I've talked to a professor at OSU. He was very helpful, at least in terms of saying that it's a research abuse to not allow a human participant out of a trial, you know, like it's an obvious violation of the Bill of Rights for patients, and I think he was broadly applying this to research participants. I can't remember the link, and it isn't important. If you typed in patient Bill of Rights or, you know, research participant Bill of Rights, you're probably going to find something. And I can certainly try to put it in there. I'm probably not going to. And that, I'll tell you why. I'm finding that Bill of Rights don't mean much. You know, like, it's anyone can have a set of rights listed. It's not so much the having of the rights as it is the enforcing when people don't do the right thing, right? So Jerry Seinfeld did this in Seinfeld. He said, it's not so much, I don't think you know what a reservation is. He had made a reservation, remember, for his car?
Yeah.
And he said, the lady said, the car is not here. And he said, I made a reservation. And she was like, there isn't a reservation. And he said, I don't think that you know what a reservation is. And I might not be quoting it right. And he said, see, anyone can take a reservation. And he kind of puts his hands up in the air. to indicate the taking of the reservation, but it's the actual, having the car. And I'm not doing it justice. But I'm saying that same thing about a Bill of Rights, or a patient Bill of Rights, or a research participant's rights. Those only matter if they actually are cared about and protected. So as I was sitting here with all these failed calls and emails and rude and abrupt and curt responses and overall an ignorance on the part of the academia.
Surprising amount of ignorance.
So it's a surprising amount of ignorance when you write to an ethics office and they don't know about human research. It's even more ironic when you write to an office called the Office of Human Research and they cannot help you. I'm sorry. My father was a university professor until I believe 87.
I believe so.
He used to say sometimes, "This is dumb, D-U-M." Father, you are correcto. This is dumb, D-U-M. My uncle graduated from OSU. Very smart man. Very kind man a lot of the time too. And he was a professor himself. I don't think he would act this way to a student that came to him and said there was inappropriate behavior. I don't even think my father would. I know he wouldn't do that. He would at least try to reach out to somebody. He would probably talk to people all over the place. That was the way that he was. And I think even my uncle would. I didn't have as close of a relationship with my uncle, but he is a very kind man. Very compassionate. I should have said, I don't know if I said most of the time, I'm a little dingy from all the emails and phone calls and lack of response. Believe me, I could go so much further about the lack of response. And by the time I got done, you would be like, I'm surprised this woman is even doing anything anymore. I'm sorry if you hear a noise in the background, but that when you report from your kitchen, that's what happens. I'm just telling you, there's no way around it. So, I was thinking about all this, and I all of a sudden had this. It's from a long time ago, so if you haven't seen the movie, I'm really sorry to spoil this for you. I actually am. But this one is way back. This is Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. I believe it was You Got Mail. Anyway, he was a big bookstore owner. He had a huge bookstore. By the way, I think that was supposed to kind of be like indicative of Barnes & Noble in the movie. And then Meg Ryan had a little tiny bookstore, kind of around the corner, Anyway, she was going along, enjoying her little bookstore. And I don't remember exactly how she started doing this email thing. But for some reason, she started to email with Tom Hanks back and forth. She didn't know who he was. He didn't know who she was. And they were talking back and forth, and then at some point, as he's going in for the kill for his not his mattress store, his bookstore. They're both rectangular.
That's true.
He's talking to her, and I think she communicates to him that her store is going to go under. That something's going on with her. And he tells her to go to the mattresses. He does not know that he is the mattresses. Here's what that means. It means to go to war, to use ruthless tactics, to act without restraint. To be honest with you, that's what the researchers have done.
It is.
I am trying to kind of, I guess, maybe not go to the mattresses. That's why I thought he had a mattress store. This is because he said that. Seems like he'd say, go to the books. I understand this is a reference. I guess my daughter said it was a Godfather reference. I was never a fan, so if that's a reference from some wild movie, I wouldn't know it. Other than it coming out of this movie, which was not a wild movie. You could call it predictable and boring. Romantic comedy,
Cliche.
but you could, huh?
Cliche.
Yeah, it's cliche. But I am taking it for this one thing. How can you go to war, metaphorically? How can you do that when you cannot find anyone to help you? And why is it that people act as though certain groups of people are nonstop reporting things with extreme success, when I have to tell you, I know very few, if any, women who have truly reported anything of the type of stuff I'm told about with success. Let me think. I'm thinking. Sarah's peeling the onion. Well, I think.
That's the noise in the background.
No. There is no woman that I know that successfully reported anything to police. Not that I am aware of. I'm trying to think now. Racial problems. No.
Okay, so.
No. I have not seen any success with that. More success with this onion. She's going to get this. Yep, she got it. See? No success, though, with reporting. I don't normally talk about stuff. I'm not going to talk about what prompted it, but I called police about 2-3 days ago to report something. I'm really on time. It happened, I believe, what was it, March 20th, 2021?
Yeah.
I am super on time, aren't I? Now, make no mistake, when I never asked for this to get reported by somebody, they did call from California into Oregon's system. And I feel violated my rights, kind of, although they weren't. They were following orders, I guess, with their wonderful occupation of therapy. And this kind of created a problem for me. And then I talked to police, I talked to this, I talked to that. And the police were kind of like, yeah, this, it kind of was like at the end of it, the police officer, who was a very nice man, is probably, he said something to me that made me back out. He said to me, it would be, kind of like a big waste of police time if I did end up backing out in the long run. At the same time, I actually had a friend of mine tell me that what I did was criminal by telling my therapist about it and then not wanting to talk to police about it.
So stupid.
What the heck?
That doesn't make sense.
I didn't commit a crime. I'm not lying. He actually said that would be lying or blah, blah, blah.
Your
Or
choice to tell something.
or obstruction of justice. There's all sorts of stuff.
It didn't
said.
even make sense.
Yeah, it didn't even make sense. And I don't think that's accurate. If they wanted me to, how come they didn't come to me then? How come they didn't insist and subpoena me to some courtroom? I don't know what they'd be subpoenaing me for, but whatever. I know when I violated the speed limit up here on Linwood in Milwaukee, $355 ticket. The city of Milwaukee versus Cheryl Savage. So they most certainly can subpoena me to court. I don't know what they're doing it for, though.
That's what didn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense and didn't make sense. None of this stuff makes sense. I am so tired of hearing about how people wrongfully go in and report stuff. And furthermore, if anyone knows somebody successful at this, can they point them in my direction so that I can utilize whatever resources they are to get all of this help that they're getting? There has been one researcher, I think, that said this is important.
Mm-hmm.
You should report it. Maybe two.
Two with weird.
I will count. It's a former teacher and PhD student and a friend of mine, as far as I'm concerned, I can't use her name, and she works in Salem in public policy. She said it was serious, concerning, and she really was trying to help. Like, actually, I called the ACLU today, and I have to call back tomorrow. That was a recommendation from her. So it's not that no one cares. I'm not saying that. Actually, even not the Office for Human Research, they didn't seem to give a crap. I wouldn't call there if I was a human being. Maybe if they're a dog. Anyway, and I'm not, and I actually wouldn't hold your hopes up though, puppies. And then I called, let's see, what else did I call? Like I said, I called IRB. And I've reached out now to a place called Brookings Institute. They have quite a bit of concern about AI, so maybe they'll know. They told me to call back at 9 in the morning, even after I told them to go to bed at 6 or 8. That's not even possible. But I will say they've got a lot of rating on it online, so maybe so. Maybe so. I guess I just don't know how to fight this. And it leads me into thinking, is private human research legal if it's not part of an academia, which it has to have. When you're part of an academia, there you have oversight by this thing called the IRB. I think it's Institutional Review Board. And generally speaking, they have one in the institution for oversight. Like they have I believe. Okay, I don't understand how this thing works. This has just come to my attention. What's making me really sad is I've written multiple emails, I've made phone calls to no avail. And if this were a client of mine, because I do a lot of advocacy, if this were anyone, I would fight and fight and fight. I actually wouldn't be so upset either. I wouldn't have like sweat all over me at times, and I wouldn't be like not well. Because when I fight for somebody else, I know I'm right. You might say, well, you can't know you're right. No, I do. I get like intuition about when people are telling me a story, and I can tell when somebody's been wrong. What was that?
It spurs you on.
Yeah, it spurs me to connect with them. If somebody tells me like a lot of stuff that doesn't seem true, I don't have much interest in supporting them. I'm not going to take. I mean, I do a lot, but I just can't stand up for people who are lying or who I feel are deceitful. It does happen. So I find myself in a very sad place. And I don't mean like my whole life's destroyed. I'll be fine. But I hope that I can find someone who will oversee in a proper way what happened here. Not just to me, but to my daughter. I hope somebody will take this seriously, because what I'm seeing is that AI, always thought this, it seems like it's kind of a problem. And if you think back to when cell phones first came around, none of us really thought this through. Just kind of let it happen. And the thing is that I think the laws didn't quite catch up, with technology.
Technology has grown so fast.
Yeah, social media, etc. It didn't catch up. So we have a lot of loopholes. This is a loophole. And if you want to go find out about it, just type in AI research and the Brookings Institute. It's a huge deal. Apparently, and I don't fully understand this, but I have a theory on it, but I might get kicked off YouTube if I say it, so maybe I won't. I'm just going to tell what happened. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg wanted to, he was trying to do a pro-vaccination COVID-19 campaign on Facebook. Anyway, things got away from him. His algorithms got away from him. And he couldn't stop what was going on Facebook, which I think he saw as a disinformation, misinformation campaign. And that's where I was going to kind of come in and make a little bit of a joke. But I don't know if I want to make it here. The reason I say that is because My joke is so funny, but it may not be funny to some people, and it may not be funny to you too. And this is their forum. So, if I make this joke, perhaps I will make it on a different venue. You could just ask me, what was your joke about venues and robots and, Facebook, and you can ask me a question about Facebook and robots and, just the whole thing, the whole pandemic. And I will tell you something that will crack you up. Probably. Especially if you know me. But you're going to have to do it in a private arena. And it is so funny.
It is.
But Mark Zuckerberg could not stop this thing. Now, if it had been me and I had been Mark Zuckerberg, I would not be a very liked person. When I want to stop something, I shut it down. So if I'm not feeling well and I'm on the computer and somebody won't listen to me, I have my phones on my computer phone. I've actually just shut the computer at times. I'm just getting tired of it. So with Facebook, had I encountered something like this, and it was an important campaign to me, I would have come out and said, I have an announcement to make. I am the CEO of Facebook, as you know, or Meta, or whatever they want to call themselves, and I am going to have to temporarily shut Facebook down. I'm having trouble with something, and as you might suspect, that is disconcerting to me. And so I'm going to shut it down. I hope that you will be able to take some time and get what you need from Facebook, because it's going to be shut down for an indefinite period of time while I'm able to try to get control of things. Of course, that would have meant, a whole lot of economic effect. I'm not stupid, I know. People would have been mad at him within Facebook, probably. And probably the entire world would have been mad at him for shutting down Facebook. However, let's face it, a lot of the world is kind of frustrated with Mark Zuckerberg anyway, so I'm actually kind of kidding. It could lead to problems for him. But at the same time, if something is that damaging, maybe you do want to shut it down. I actually find Facebook to be super damaging on a level that I can't even describe here. Look at our society. Do I have to describe it? I just got to thinking about it. Look at our society. Do I have to really tell you what's wrong? If I do, then I hate to say it, but then something is wrong with the person who's hearing this and says, what's wrong? Or maybe you haven't paid attention to it. I mean, personally, I want to leave Facebook. I don't want to ever deal with Facebook again. I'm not even sure it's worth being on there for friends. There is one thing keeping me there now. Unfortunately, it's a biggie. There's a person that I go to listen on Facebook. That's where he does his stuff right now. So I can't leave Facebook. But I can leave for the most part. It's just very difficult. Anyway, I'm starting to wonder, and I'm concluding, and I'm wondering if other people are, that they're really... It's not just that people don't report stuff, it's that people don't report stuff for a reason, because there's very little oversight, very little enforcement in certain areas, and people are just tired of it. And let me tell you something. It would not matter what group that you belong to if this happened to you. You would not like it.
That's definitely true.
But if you were a person who was really vulnerable in any way, so I'm not going to get into those ways except for to say maybe, you know who I am. If you were really vulnerable, if you were more vulnerable than I am, and there is more vulnerable. There's people that don't have a house and are outside, or people who can't speak at all up for themselves. You probably would just think, oh well, and you get abused a lot. And who knows, you might even get abused way more than I did, and I've already had effects. So, this is a warning call. It is. It's an alarm bell that I keep sounding over and over again. I doubt I'm going to fully let it go, because that's just the way I am. I mean, until I get an answer. Even if that answer is we can't help you, I'm probably not going to fully let it go until I get that answer. I mean, I mean, it's going to be more than just a week or two or several months. Probably. But I'm not going to make myself completely ill to do it, because what I can see is we've got a problem in society. AI, it looks like AI has some problems in it. Like I said, go check out the article, because I read it and I was like, what? And the reason I was like, what, is because I never heard about it in sociology. Not really. Granted, my classes weren't grounded in technology, although I did take one that touched on, one or two that touched on technology. You'd think they would have brought it up, kind of weave it in. So, I don't know. Anyone do participate in private research? Usually it's public. It's public if it's funded. Like it's a university or something. And those aren't great either. Actually, I don't even think they're that great. I don't even think research is producing a lot of the good stuff. But before I say that, did anyone participate in research and have something bad happen and just want to report it, and they did, and it's private? And so they have an answer, they tell me. But on academia, like research there isn't much better. Not really. Research in the academia, it's a big bullying fest in academia. I just read about it today. And even PhD students get abused in the system. I shouldn't say even. They do. They get utilized like they're numbers. I'm very not, I guess I'm not pleased. When I encounter something, I usually fight the way that Tom Hanks mentioned to Meg Ryan to fight. Because when somebody comes to me with this sort of problem, I want to be able to help them. Actually, I want to be able to help even my daughter. She didn't encounter as much as I did, but it wasn't fun for her. And I can't do that. So, leave comments for sure, and if you have any information that might help, that's great. I've already called most offices. There was one other one. It had a name like that, Office of Human Research, Office of... We will try to do something, but can't. So I'm going to stop this. It's a long one. Most of these are going to be long because they're intense topics. And plus you have to throw in a little comedy in. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do my best one. It really is funny what I had to say about that. About robots and Zuckerberg. Okay. So I'm going to wrap it up here and I'll catch you on the next one. I have no idea what it will be. Take care.